All right, geometry. So the big step forward in this skill compared to prisms and cylinders is that when we're working with pyramids and cones for this section, every single one of the formulas has a fraction in it. So the first thing you have to do when you see that the shape is either a pyramid or a cone is you have to multiply by 1/3. Now that doesn't really change our process very much. We're going to solve the problem basically the same way. What that does do though is give us a lot of problems that will give us decimals in our answer. So because of that, we're going to have to be very careful with any rounding we need to do. Hopefully your answers will still work out to be integers most of the time, but unlike the previous section, you are less likely to get an integer answer. So, the first thing you're going to do is identify which shape you are looking at. In this case, we have a triangular pyramid. This has probably the messiest of the three formulas. 1/3 times 1/2 times length times width times height. So that means that for this problem, I'll multiply the two fractions together, and then the length is 3, the width is 4, and the height is 5. So if you take your time on your calculator, you should hopefully be able to get there fairly quickly. Multiplying all these numbers together, I actually get a really nice answer. I get an answer of exactly 10. So we'll type that in to verify that our score increases. And you can see our score has improved. Now, more than likely, every single cone you work with, you will not get an integer. Because cones have circles, that require us to multiply by pi. This wants us to use 3.14, and it wants us to round to the nearest hundredth. So we will need 2 decimals. Let's take our time. Let's see what we get. So remember that a cone is different from a cylinder. We have to use 1/3 when we multiply. We're going to be multiplying by 3.14 for pi. This time we are once again given the length across the entire circle, which is the diameter. We want the radius, so we have to divide that number by 2. So the radius of this cone is only 3. And then the height is 6. Now that can be very, very messy on a calculator. So if you're following along, this is the best way to make sure you're doing this. Just like with a cylinder, you want to do each thing separately. If you try to type it all in at once and press enter at any point before the end, there's a good chance you're going to get the wrong answer. So if you have your calculator, type this in the way you think you should, and we'll see if you're getting it correctly. Even I'm going to take my time on this one. So 1/3 times 3.14 times 3 squared. Now if I want to avoid putting in squared, I can do 3 squared before I type it in, which is 9. And then multiply by 6. Now, fortunately, our answer is going to have only 2 decimals on it. I got an answer of 56.52. If I would have gotten less than 2 decimals, that's fine. You type in that answer. But if I would have had more than 2 decimals, I would need to round this number so that there was only 2. You do have to round correctly. The good news is by them using 3.14 instead of the pi button, most of the time you will not get extra decimals. So keep that in mind though. If there is more than 2 decimals, you'll have to round. So we'll type in 56.52 just to verify that our score increases. And there you go. So you can see that our next question is another cone. Let's see if we can find a rectangular pyramid real quick. Another cone. Another cone. It really seems to like cones. All right, I feel like I am about to give up on the book giving us something other than a cone. So apparently you should expect to see many cones as you are going through this skill. It really, really likes the cones. I'm honestly at this point pretty surprised. I can't get it to not give me a cone. So expect to see a lot of cones. However, thankfully we saw a triangular pyramid, and honestly, if you see a rectangular pyramid, it's going to be the easiest of the three. It's the same thing as the triangular pyramid, except you won't have the 1/2 when you multiply. So that's a pretty good way to just kind of see, at least we did the hardest two of the three types. So, again, they are random questions, so you might come across way more rectangular pyramids and way fewer cones. Anyway, guys, we only have one skill left. Make sure you check that out. It's probably the easiest of the three, so I think you'll be able to fly through that one. I'll see you guys in the final video for the year.